Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. We are excited to bring you today's episode on one of Nick and I's more favorite speakers. Probably, I would say, definitely top 10 for me. I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, is Les Brown. And for those of you who do not know about Les Brown, we'll obviously go into it a little bit more deeper, but this is somebody who had a lot of early struggles, had significant learning disabilities, struggled in business and in life, found the recipe that worked and became an international best-selling author, well-renowned speaker. So the thing that impressed me about Les Brown is he wrote a best-selling book in the late 90s. And you and I grew up in that era, and that was known for being very motivational and powerful speaking. But people change, society changes. And I think it's fair to say that some of the things that resonated back then don't resonate necessarily as stronger in terms of the stylistic approach, not the substance of the teaching, but the stylistic approach. And he went another like 15 years in between when he had that best-selling book and did this book that we're going to review today about it's not over until you win. And that resonated with the generation of that day. And so it was interesting because he had two best-selling books with a pretty big gap in between. Certain elements are similar, but some very different, aspects to it. And I like people who can recreate themselves a little bit and adapt to the time. So anyway, that was a long preamble. But let me first make sure to ask you to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. And also want to give a shout out to my co-host and today's sponsor, Nick Menard and nickmenard.com. Not one, but two Amazon best-selling books, Mindset is My Degree, and his latest, The 1% Push Legacy. Happy Monday, Nick. ¿Qué pasa?
Happy Monday, Will. Hello, winners.
What's up?
I'm excited for these episodes because
Tell me about Les, because I know you knew about him, which was a pleasant surprise to me when we first started interacting with each other several years ago. But
yeah,
what's your take on Les?
so that's definitely for me is enthusiasm, is energy level through the roof. Of course, as a speaker, he inspires everybody in the room. There is nobody going on their phone while he speak. He really attract everybody when he's doing a speech. He has the perfect one-liners at the right time. Being, like we both were in direct selling when we started or entrepreneurial journey, and that's someone that of course they love to mention and bring in because of the motivation aspect that they bringing, the enthusiasm like I mentioned, and yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then his first like a big bestseller was Live Your Dreams, and it was very, very powerful. And so yeah, so I'm excited to go over this book review and talking a bit more about him.
Yeah. He is a fun one. He's got some pipes, let's just say, to your point. When he speaks, people are paying attention. Great voice, great message. So, all right. But first, before we dive in deep into Les Brown's book, we are going to do our favorite segment.
Quotes and quips.
Ooh, that was a little better. We're getting there. We're getting back on that. All right. So first quote. I like this one. I can't wait to hear your take on this. So, quote from Les Brown in the book we're reviewing, and the quote is, "If you fall on your back. If you can look up, you can get up." Tell me, Nick, thoughts on that one?
Every single successful people fell at some point, and probably multi times. The thing is that when you fall forward, you don't have any vision. When you fall backward, you still have the whole vision in front of you. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. We all know that. But, we all know that life will knock you down. The only question is, do you decide to stay down, or you decide to actually get up and smile? Keep your smile. And that's something that Les Brown keeps saying every time he's talking, like, keep being positive, keep smiling. You know, it's just every time you fall, you are one step closer to your success. And that's the way to see it. It's looking at all the negativity that you can have and bring it to the positivity. It's the same in sales. You call every no, it's getting closer to your yes. It's the same philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the positivity and the attitude of you just learn. Edison, he failed over 1,000 times to invent the light bulb until he succeeded. They call him crazy. If people don't call you crazy for an idea you have, then you probably don't have the right idea. But if everybody call you crazy, it's probably going somewhere. And so you can give up and get back to be a Mr. Everyone, or you can stick with your idea, learn from the mistakes you make, and grow and eventually reach your goal.
Love it. Yeah, and he just has a way to turn a phrase, right? You can look up, you can get up, and he's right, because if you can look up, that means you're not buried 6 feet under with dirt piled on top of you, right? So you can get up, in theory, obviously. So I just love it, and it's about persistence. So often, and we've talked about this in so many different episodes. The difference, and this is what he'll talk about in this book. We're going deeper, so I won't spend too much time on it here. But generally, people, if you just continue, you would reach the things that you're after more often than not. But too often, people quit somewhere in between and never really get to that point. So, but to your point, mistakes are growth. It's about learning and growing. Nobody bats 1,000 in life. To use batting average analogy, nobody bats 1,000. It's
Mm-hmm.
what you do when you strike out or you don't get a hit and how you respond and move forward. You can look up, you can get up. Tell them less. Love it. Love it. All right, now get your namaste moment. You gotta do here. This is a first ever in the Two for the Win Monday Mindset series. We are going to quote the Dalai Lama as our quip. Get ready. Bet you didn't expect that one. Dalai Lama. But I liked it. So I'm curious about your thoughts. So the Dalai Lama, his quip is, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito.
I love that. Well, it's a well-known quip. So that's true. You don't need to be the biggest person in the room. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You don't need all of that. What you need is to whatever idea and whatever impact you are able to make on the society, on other people, and on yourself, you will be enough. And so, and mosquitoes, we all know, like we all had those at some point in your ear when you're in the middle of the night, all you want is sleep and you cannot figure it out where that freaking mosquito is, but the mosquito will always find your ear, always. And so it's true. There is not a, there is not a height or weight class in order to be successful. So just do it and don't worry about what people say. You will always have people around you who will be negative, who don't believe in what you're trying to accomplish. You can use that as fuel, like I mentioned with my dad in multi episodes away, or you can use it as something that's gonna do, bring you down. If the person doesn't pay your bills, you should not be worried about the person feeling about what your ideas are. Are they good or bad? You pay my bills, then I'm listening. I may not even do what you said, but I may listen. But if you don't, move away. Go with your negativity somewhere else. Rarely a person who is successful will try to bring you down. Usually are people who are unsuccessful who do that because they're unable to do what you are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, 1,000%. And, you talked about the mosquito in terms of the ear. Man, there's nothing I hate more than a mosquito bite, right?
Mm.
Little mosquito, then it's itching me for a day or half a day. So there's a little mosquito making a difference in how I feel about something, especially at night. I like to sit out on the porch sometimes or in my gazebo. And then, all of a sudden, depending on the season, here come the mosquitoes. There goes my joy. I'm going inside. So yeah. Next time you feel like you're small, think of the mosquito and the difference it can make in your moment in your life that time. But well said on your part as well, my friends. So, all right. So back to Les Brown. and it's not over until you win. And I hope I get to it at some point in this episode. There's a story that he tells I just absolutely love. But the premise of this book is most people don't fail because they lack talent. It's because they quit in the middle when things stop going according to plan. And again, he likes to turn a phrase. If you're still breathing, you're still in the fight, right? That's one of the things he says. And, the thing about him, again, we touched on a little bit, is he definitely faced a lot of adversity as a child and then when he was growing up and a young adult. And the thing about this book that I like is besides his way of turning a phrase where he's got a one sentence thing that kind of sticks in your head, is that it's really grounded in reality, and it's very practical. So there's a few things. There's going to be 6 things that we're going to cover in terms of the takeaway from the book. And I'm just going to lead, with them. I'll summarize them at the end, but I'll lead with the first one and then pass it over to you to get your thoughts. So the first key takeaway from Les Brown in his book is stay in the fight longer than what feels rational. So like we just mentioned, success happens after most people quit. But, if you're restarting constantly, you're quitting things a lot, you're avoiding discomfort, you're probably not staying in the fight long enough and building that grit and perseverance. But thoughts on that premise from the book?
I will let you go on that one because I have an idea, but I don't think it's the idea that we should be portrayed on this one.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think there's usually a point where people think, what am I doing? So I'll actually share a personal example. When I first got hired at the company that I spent 13 years with, I think that I was about 6 weeks in, and I'm like, what the heck did I sign up for? Like there was like things coming at me. It seemed like every direction. I didn't really have a lot of subject matter expertise, and I came from an industry where I held a lot of subject matter expertise. So I was, dealing with the internal aspects of not knowing a lot of what I needed to talk to people about, which bothered me. And then, I had leadership change in the first 30 days that happened. I had my mentor who was assigned to me talked to me for 15 minutes, is like, oh, you got this, you're going to be fine. And I'm like, what in the world? And so it could have been easy to have been like, oh, I just made a mistake. Let me go find something else. Right. But I stayed with it. I just stayed after it. And I tell this story, but I used to serve enterprise architect clients. And I remember the very first call I had with the enterprise architect client. And they said, yeah, we're working on an EA charter. And I'm like, what's that got to do with a boat? Talking about. So that just tells you, where I was at in my learning journey. But I stuck with it. And at the end of the day, you know, build the subject matter expertise, delighted by clients more often than not, of course, and try to bring value and had a very rapidly advancing career that may have never even happened the way it did had I decided to be like, when I was 6 months in and pulling my hair out, be like, maybe I'll do something else. So that's kind of like my personal story about sticking with it. Like, there's going to be times where you're going to have doubt. I'm not saying to stay with things in perpetuity, but to stay with them longer than what it seems rational. You may get a breakthrough moment. And if you do, fantastic. If you don't, okay, you maybe lost a little bit of time, but at least for certain you gave it what you had and it just wasn't a fit for whatever reason.
That's a very, very good example. That makes me think of Bronson from Virgin saying like, if someone offers you a job in a company you really want to work and you have no idea about the job, accept it, sign, and you will learn and figure it out once you win. And it's literally what happened here with you. You thought like, what am I doing here? But you're learning on the go. And me as a person who hire people from outside in different aspects of my business and even in corporate America, I much rather have someone with zero expertise in in the, the subject matter instead of having people with expertise. Because when they come with expertise, that's very hard to change their bad habits. When they come with none and they have the right mindset, there's nothing you can't teach.
Mhm.
And that's why that's the angle that I have.
Love it. Yep. So, leadership takeaway, practical way to apply this theme is normalize friction, build teams that expect the hard middle. So
Mm.
you gotta expect there's going to be challenging times. It's can you persevere through it and then rise above it? All right, next one. Identity is greater than circumstances. So, what Les talks about is your identity determines your response to adversity. What it doesn't look like is when you have the victim mindset. We've talked about the ladder's accountability being on the victim rungs of the ladder, or environment driven thinking. What they mean by environment driven thinking is you're reacting to things that are happening versus you're planting your flag or charting your course. You're a ship with a rudder versus being adrift at sea as a ship without a rudder, where the environment's going to dictate where you end up. If you got a rudder, eventually you will make to your port. You won't be held to the whims of the wind on that one. But identity greater than circumstances. Your thought on that one?
Yeah, I mean, we all have identities, but we don't have the same pathway to get where we need to be. And so I always like people. That's why I love AI to be a complement of what we are. But I do believe that the human aspect is so very important. And that's the reason why I'm fighting as a leader against people who are all about modeling everything and and not have any individuality in anything we do. Why? Because we automate everything. And I believe automation is important for some aspects of business. But I do believe the identity, the creativity of each individual are so very important because that's what will differentiate ourselves from AI. And so in that aspect, I want to keep that autonomy. I want my leaders to keep their autonomy about the way that they coach, the way they function in adversity. Yes, we are here to coach them. We are here to help them be successful. But if we all have the same playbook, if we all play the same thing at the same time and follow line 1, 2, 3 up to line 175 on the playbook, well, then we should be replaced by AI and pay a fraction of the price that they're paying for a salary. And that's why I'm always going to fight for identity, because at the end of the day, the identity is what's going to shape whatever outcome. And then we can learn from it and polish it and make it better and share it. But at the end of the day, the individuality and the creativity of each person is for me what will make a big difference at the end of the day. Definitely in competition with AI.
No, totally. And great point, and great in bringing in, obviously, can't get more current event than that right now, is that we try to figure out how we are going to interact with AI in business and in personal life, candidly. So, yeah, great point and great lens and what you shared on that one. So the third one, I don't think we need to dwell on this one much because we talk about this a lot, but failure is feedback, not final. So again, failure provides data for improvement. As a leader, the leadership takeaway, analyze failure, but don't tolerate repeated patterns without learning, right? So in other words, learn from the mistakes, don't keep repeating the mistakes and grow from that. We've talked about that in a number of episodes, but this one, I'm curious on your thoughts with this. And I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier with my personal example, but the fourth theme from Les Brown's book, you don't have to feel ready. So what it is, action creates confidence. And we've talked about this before. What it doesn't look like, waiting for certainty, letting perfection impede progress, over preparing. But I know you have some thoughts on this one. I know you've lived it. I mean, seeing you and your journey and the different business ventures you've done, I know you don't wait for perfection. You go out and make things happen. But your thoughts on that one?
If I was waiting for perfection, I would wait until I die. I mean, you will never have perfection. But the problem is that you will work or you will be around people who will want everything to be perfect before starting. And then when they start, it is still not going to be perfect and there's still going to be tweak to do. So you are the king of that, like the 0.5 version. Let's start something with imperfection and improve it as you go, instead of trying to wait for the perfect time and the perfection to be there in order to be able to deliver it. For my travel agency, I will use that example. I made a mistake, and I shared that already. I made a mistake the first year. I tried to do every single class training that I could possibly do for each vendor. There are thousands of vendors, and I tried to do as many vendor training as possible, understanding each vendor, what their specialties are. What happened when you are at number 20, 30, 40, and you never sold any of those? You forget everything. So it's a complete waste of time. Then the first year was really bad, but I was focusing on training. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Instead, let's listen to the clients. What the clients wants, what the clients need. And then I train myself based on what the client need. So that's the reverse way that you would think it should be. We should learn and then go take clients. Now, get the prospect to tell you what they need, figure it out in the back hand, how to handle it, what to propose, what is the best way to close the deal. You learn as you go. I still do. Of course, no, my knowledge matter in a lot of those vendors is a lot improved and way better now. I can talk without looking at anything. But I still have people asking me questions about destinations I never quote before or never been myself before, or they asking some super specific thing that I have no idea where to look at. I ask my peer. I go on my back office and I'm looking, okay, how can I help this client? Guess what? 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, I may have a client asking me exactly the same thing. No, I have the answer.
Mhm.
You will never know everything about everything. Definitely in industry like in IT or in industry like travel, it changes all the time. Like in travel, you have new resorts, new cruises every single month opening up. So you cannot know everything about everything. So if you want perfection, you will never go anywhere in life. You can strive for perfection and get as close as possible from perfection, but if you reach it, it's probably a problem somewhere. So that would be my 2 cents.
Love it. Yeah. And I think something else that you've said a lot on the podcast, is celebrating the small wins, right? And so it's like you want a reward initiative. To your point, you don't have to worry about perfect. Did you take some action? Did you move some steps forward? Momentum beats perfection every time. Because to your point, you'll never reach perfection. So, but along the way, you will achieve excellence if you strive for it, but you act. Yeah, on that one. All right, the last two, I'll let you pick. I'm going to read two and you pick which one you want to talk about. Fifth theme from the book, guard your mind relentlessly. Inputs shape beliefs and outcomes. And number 6, responsibility creates power. Ownership restores control and helps leaders regain agency. Which one would you like to dive into between those two?
Ooh, the last one. And I
Okay.
think you're great at that. So you can go the first stab, and then I can round it up.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear what you think. I'll do mine pretty quick. I think, again, we talked about ladder of accountability, victor versus victim mindset. There's people who, if you really pay attention to the words people use, sometimes people can sound on the surface like they're positive, but you can note hidden things within what they're saying, and they're actually blaming, it's excuses, or being too passive. And I think one of the things that I do well, but I also have to guard against, is I'm pretty good at intuition and inference. So when people say things, I try to understand, what are they really saying? The guard against that is sometimes I can make assumptions that aren't true. So that's where I have to ask questions and make sure that is my inference correct. But I ultimately think if you're trying to create a culture where people feel is fair and motivating, is you have to have clear standards. They have to know what's expected of them, right? Helpful for them to know the why, so help connect the dots for them because not everyone can see the forest through the trees. But the last part, you have to be accountable and fairness in applying those standards consistently, because having that responsibility and not doing those things, you actually erode culture, because the first people who are going to be offended are your top performers, because they're going to be like, why should I be killing myself doing all this stuff when John Q. Public over here is not doing any of it? And they may actually be even making more money than your top performer, right? I mean, you talk about insult to injury. So it's about the responsibility of the leader. You have to make sure people understand what is being asked. Do they understand the job to be done? Understand the why. And then it's giving that feedback loop, which we've talked about quite a bit, so they understand what good looks like and what falls below the standard. And then if they fall below that standard, you hold them accountable. And by holding them accountable, I'm not saying you beat them with a reed. It's like you give them coaching, right? You don't sweep it under the rug. You don't just say, oh, yeah, everything is fine. You're doing great. It's like, no, here's some things you're doing well. Here's one thing that seems to be holding you back from maybe getting to the next level. And you may not say it directly like that, but I'm just essence of time. And you hold them accountable. And when people see that, they'll know that the standard is consistent. And even if they may not agree, not everyone may agree with the standard, but they will at least know that it's being applied fairly, and you'll have a much better culture. But your
I
thought?
love it. I was going to say two things. First of all, the importance of culture for me as a leader. If you create a culture where people are feeling safe to speak up and to share ideas without being, finger pointing, if it's not something that's going to be huge. But the second one, since you touch base on culture a lot, was for me to stop giving your focus on the bottom performer. And as a lead, as a leader, it happens so often. Like say you have a team of 10 people. You have two who are clearly dragging. All right. Then you have 2, 3 who are top performer. And then you have the people in the middle. Majority of the time, you will see leadership focusing mainly in everybody but the top 3. Because, they are fine. They're doing great. Well, I urge you to do the opposite. You, of course, make sure that the coaching is done for people in the bottom to raise the bar. But if you are letting the your top performer go, or don't give attention to them because they are your top performer, you will actually create something that you don't want, which is those people are going to look somewhere else because they don't get valued. Because it's normal. They're great. You just said, oh, great job. You're doing so good. Fantastic. But you don't coach them up. You don't make them even better. You don't make them master, like we talked about in a few episodes ago. Instead of being good or average in everything, some people are great in something. So continue to develop them for them to become master in what they are already great at. Give them a voice for the team. Give them the voice for the group. You want them to feel seen. You want him to feel like that they are the best and they should feel that way. It's going to give you so much more at the end of the day than to focus all your energy in the bottom performer to raise the bar. Work on the top and make sure that people in the bottom are following through with your coaching, but also the self mindset of not willing to be in the bottom, of not willing to be average. And if it's not going, do the right thing against the people in the bottom or average, but continue to promote people on the top, because that's actually what will make a difference for you and your business.
Mic drop. I think that's a great place to end. I crushed it. Thank you for sharing it. Totally agree and all that. So well said, my friend. All right. So again, Les Brown's book, It's Not Over Until You Win. Again, to quickly summarize, people don't lose or don't make the progress that they're capable of making because they can't. It's typically because they stop too early. Endurance and interpretation of setbacks separate winners from those who don't win. And stay in the fight, own your narrative. My friend just closed it with a mic drop comment about having that accountability and ownership, and act before you feel ready. Progress over perfection. Build on the momentum. There you have it, folks. Les Brown. And if you owe it to yourself to go on YouTube and find some clips. If you've never heard this gentleman speak, take 5 minutes, search on YouTube, find it. Chances are, I think you'll be coming away as impressed as what Nick and I have been as witnessing this man's career and his life over the years. So that'll do it for this Monday Mindset Winners. Again, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow 2 for the Win on your favorite platform. And shout out to Nick Menard and nickmenard.com and the 1% Push Legacy, his Amazon bestseller. We'll see you next week, winners. Take care. Bye, winners.